All right, this will be fun. Matthias, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Thank you for having me. So good that you pronounced my name right. I love it.
Oh,
Thanks.
practice makes perfect. With a last name like Sadovnik, you gotta know how to pronounce names. And it's something I've always liked is and disliked. I've always liked the differences in how people pronounce their names and the flavor in that and all that stuff and disliked why can't people do that? Are we so lazy that we have to just say no, call me I have to call you Sam because it's easier or something? It's fun to be different. It's cool to hear where names came from and all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. And also, I think that it's important if you want to be called a certain way that you should also kind of insist on being called that, right? Because it's part of the whatever you whatever your personality is.
Yeah, it's personality. It's also like where things are derived from. Where does your name came from? Why? And things like that. It's like interesting. If we were all called George, everybody, with all due respect to anybody called George, it would be boring. So Matthias, welcome. I think that's going to be great that people will see why you do deserve to be on a Leaders Who Care series and stuff you're doing. But best place to start, as I also always say this too. I've been saying for years, especially for men, I have to put an asterisk when I ask this question about can you tell us about yourself? Because men generally go, not as much European, but men generally go to, I'm the vice president and this is what I do. But that's not the question. The question is, can you tell us a little bit about where you're from originally? Where are you now? Anything you feel comfortable talking about family and stuff, and maybe something you've never told anybody ever, and you want to reveal to the world now. That's always fascinating too.
Oh
So
wow, I love that. That's
share a
so
little
good.
bit.
Yeah, of course. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, or from the suburban area of Germany, of Munich, not of Germany as well.
Hmm.
But Munich, I grew up at a little beautiful lake, just west of Munich, 45 minutes, but perfectly to get into the city. Um, yeah, family-wise, I've had quite a few relationships which is also part of the whole story that my life and what we're probably going to talk about is about as well. And yeah, right now I'm single actually. And yeah, just back visiting in my hometown. And before I was traveling a lot, I used to live in many places already. I spent a year in Canada in British Columbia on Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
And
Way to
so,
go, eh?
way to go, eh? Fucking A. And then I spent a year in Spain in La Coruña, and then a couple of years ago I lived in Barcelona. So I've like I'm a traveler of the like I used to travel a lot the outside world. Now I travel a lot the inside world as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's a little bit about myself.
Well, welcome to the single world. I'm there with you on that one right now. So, there's pros and cons to both sides of everything, right? All the time
Yeah.
and stuff. Are your parents still around? Are they in Germany? They just tell us? Do you have siblings?
They are still around. I do have a sister, a younger sister. She's 5 years younger. And she actually moved back permanently into the hometown where I'm from.
Sweet.
And since I'm here as well, like I see her and my parents a lot, and that's been like a beautiful thing in the last months. And yeah, like the last 6 months that I've been around here, I've really created like a very new connection with them, with my whole family.
Hmm.
And I used to, I would say, run away a lot. Like I'm very um I used to
You
be.
ran away from home?
I'm not away. I'm quite grounded now, and I'm quite. I would say, people say like, "Wow, you have such a calm attitude and grounded." And but if you would have seen me like 6, 7 years ago, I was like anxious. I was all over the place, several companies, always like on the move, on the run, and I've really rewired that relationship with my family, which has helped me to also ground myself in general. And I now have where before I used to get super agitated when my dad would be, I don't know, just would be maybe angry or a little bit impulsive or things like that. I would like my nervous system would be really like, whoa. under a lot of tension. Now I'm just super calm. And I've recreated this beautiful relationship with my parents. Actually, they're still together, married for yeah, almost 35 years. No, more than 35 years already. And yeah, it's been wonderful the last months to spend here and to reconnect with the land as well. And just a very, very new way of seeing the plants, the trees, the animals, my family. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll lead to a question a little bit later about, entrepreneurship and work and this and that and what we think we have to do to make it, and then what are we giving up to make it, and can we get it back after if we made it, and all that stuff. And it's interesting. But let's start a little bit from, you talk about the village and when you were a kid and a teenager. Did you have the lemonade stand entrepreneur thing going early on? To make some money, or were you into sports, music, videos? What were you into?
Well, when I was a kid, my parents they both studied to be teachers. And my mom actually was a teacher. In Germany, we have different school system, but kind of like a high school teacher.
Hmm.
And and then my dad, he never started as a teacher. He went to BMW. So, like the big car company.
Sure.
And he worked there for like 30 years. So I come from a quite like not particularly conservative, but not very entrepreneurial family, I would say, right? Like my dad's family is also like they used to be farmers. He had like in his hometown when I was a kid, we used to visit the vineyards that my uncle had still from the family, and
Wow.
they had sheep and cows and pigs and all of this, and it was phenomenal. That was great. So I used to grow up really connected with animals and nature and this kind of stuff, which was beautiful. And I started playing football, not American football, but soccer, as you call it
Right.
in America, from a very young
By the
age.
way, I
From
never
the age.
understood that because it
Me neither.
seems like football should be the name, and American football should be like, arm football or something, because you throw it and you kick it type of thing. But that's a whole other discussion.
Or tackle football or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I grew up doing like lots of sports. I was always a sport. My parents met during their studies, and they both studied to be a phys ed teacher.
Oh, well.
And so that's where they met. So sports has always been in my genes. Always a big hockey player as well. I played hockey here. It's not so famous here, but I did. I played soccer, played tennis, table tennis, all of this. Wasn't a lot of sports clubs, so I was always around people. Like I was a very community or yeah, like team kind of guy. I would always be in like sports teams and everywhere and hang like different friends group. Like I'm a very social person.
Yeah, I find, and the reason I love hearing that stuff is, I think a lot of things happen when we're kids, obviously, that impact us. A lot of things, even from birth to 3 years old, different things that we learn. But it so aligns with, they say sports is life, and vice versa. It so aligns with, everything entrepreneurial you've done, and anything, any business anybody's in, and how you learned to be on a team when you were a kid playing a sport. And did you have the right coaches that made you that maybe coached you beyond just the sport, but actually life while they're coaching you in the sport is so important. So I love to hear that, and I think we can learn a lot from animals too,
Mm.
type of thing. Also from what you talked about. If we move on to school a little bit, I mean, you got your bachelor's in technology and management, right, at Technical University of Munich. What were you envisioning then?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with a moment that I realized when reflecting in the last years about life. Much more than I had before. In fact, it's like the thing that I do most of the time now. Um, and it was a moment when I was about 11 years old and I came home from school. And as I said, I grew up at this beautiful lake. And I came home and it was a summer day, like shortly before the summer vacations. And I was super excited already. I wanted to go to the lake with my friends. And I had two really good friends back then. that I wanted to hang out and be on the boat, just like kids do. And I called both of them, and they both said, we have to do homework or help our parents in the garden or something like that. And so I was like, oh, okay, like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the lake by myself. And then I had lunch, did like a little bit of my homework, and then I went down to the lake. And I was standing there, and and like the sun was shining down, my feet was on the ground, and then I looked out on the lake, and I saw a boat, and on that boat were my two friends together. And in that moment, like now the balloons come, but exactly the opposite like happened inside of me, right? Like I I was so I felt so small, I felt so unworthy. And in this moment, I formed that belief about myself that I have to perform, that I have to, do stuff in order to be validated and
Hmm.
be worthy of love, actually.
Right.
So, that moment informed later stages of my life, together with another moment where I was like really I was in like deeply in love with a girl for 10 years during my school time. And it was an how do you say, unrequited love. I asked her out,
Maybe unreciprocal.
unreciprocal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
she wasn't into me
non-reciprocal,
pretty
right?
much. She wasn't into me
It's the
pretty
worst.
much.
It's the worst thing when you say "I love you" and they don't come back, right? With the
Exactly. So I tried to like I gave her like a letter. Hey, do you want to, like, very early on, like when I was 8, 9 years old, and hey, do you want to go out with me? And she's like, no, no, I don't. Like I said, I love you. Do you want to go out with me? And she's like, I don't love you, but you could go out with X. Like she gave another name, and like completely shattered me.
she's referring you.
Yeah, she's referring me to another one pretty much. So, like matchmaking style, but when you're 9, that's not what you want to hear, right?
I
And
don't think you want to hear
then
that when you're 89, even.
no, no, probably not. But then what happened to that is that I became quite shy. So it was like always like I was always loving her for like 10 years straight. And that was so hard for me because I saw her going out with friends of mine. I was still in love with her, but I didn't try to, approach her again. So these two moments really show, like, I was like outwardly, I was always like kind of like really active and doing stuff, but inside, I had a lot of things to deal with that I wasn't really, showing to the world, and I was like kind of performing. And then when I came into like these like kind of like mental frameworks or beliefs of like I'm not good enough like to get this woman, I'm not, I have to show that I'm worthy in order to get friends, and all of this led to me really early on like getting that entrepreneurial drive actually, and try and being like,
Right,
hey, I want to show the world that I'm like super good,
right.
at the stuff that I do. And so yeah, when I studied, as you said, management and technology, and two people approached me, and that's how the entrepreneurial journey started. They were like, hey, we have a great idea of the software company, let's go.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that because I'll give you an example. We get so impacted by things that happen when we're young that, and they say trauma, it does stay in your body, whatever type of trauma, and it could be in your elbow, it could be, but it stays there.
Mhm.
And I've noticed with men, especially because more men have worked now, there's a lot more women too, but they would tell me um, similar to what you've said in a sense. Like I remember when my coach, when I was 10, put me out on the field or on the ice in a critical moment of the game. And they don't even necessarily tell me if they scored or not. They just remember, man, he really believed in me. He put me out in a major moment of the game. And their whole
Mhm.
confidence for their whole life almost is based on that type of thing. Now it
Yeah.
could go the other way too, like you said, they didn't happen and whatnot, and you have got to overcome it, and they say that's why they were driven to perform so much, because of it, and it could be exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And when you say it stays in the body, that's exactly, the type of work that I do now, because I realized, and that, like, that's why I say, like, the last 7 years or so, I've really dedicated myself to to getting to know myself better and to really rewiring those patterns because they didn't serve me in a moment,
You
in
should
that
share.
moment anymore.
I'm really good at interrupting, by the way, you'll find out. Share,
I love that.
share,
Anytime.
share a little bit of some of the experience you did have, in your journey. I mean, you were co-founding companies like
Yeah.
from the start. And are there any, probably a lot of stories to tell. Are there any specific experiences or inflection points that stand out for you? Whether it's at, for example, Wealth Pilot or was it Ski Godi? Is that what it
She
was called?
Gaudi.
Ski Godi and
Yeah.
Paradise Ventures. And
Mm.
what impact did they have on you? To win, to be successful, and then we'll talk about after that. Share a little bit about the
Hmm.
experiences there.
Well, first of all, I think that what's really important to mention is that like I did all of that from a very like young drive. There was like a lot of just like
Right.
curiosity and experience and all of that. And all of a sudden, with Wealth Pilot, for example, we had 70 employees, and here I am. Like I was like 26, 27 years old, and I didn't feel mature,
Hmm.
ultimately. Back then I would say like, yeah, 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 like, I'm there,
Sure,
right?
sure.
But it wasn't really mature. And I'm still seeing that in men that are a lot older now that I'm meeting. Like psychological maturity is so different from the biological maturity.
Right,
And so a lot of entrepreneurs have a lot of success early on, or also later in their 30s, maybe 40s, and it comes from an internal drive that might not be fully in service for all the people that they're impacting. And oftentimes they're not even aware of that. I
right.
was not aware of what I was impacting, and I was doing stuff that wasn't really, that you wouldn't say is really, like I used my power to, like, hook up with working students and stuff like that in my own company, and some might say, okay, this is excusable. For me now, this is out of integrity because leaders are, leaders have a very, very important role, and they should be role models in my opinion,
I
right?
agree.
And we all, like, leaders have to, in a way, be aware of where their actions come from and what drives them to do action. And the more we know that, obviously there's like an infinite number of, or an infinite depth to this, right? But at least have some personal reflection, all of it. Otherwise, it's not a leader for me, right?
Right.
It's a person that gained power of some form, of some degree. So back to the Wealth Pilot. So yeah, Wealth Pilot, we had 70 employees. It was like a VC-backed company. And then She Gaudi was really organically growing. And that was super cool. Like we did these skiing festivals in the mountains for students, and all of a sudden, over years, it grew, grew, grew. Like we always had like twice the number of participants every year, so it grew progressively.
Hmm.
And then we had thousands of people in the mountains and rented out like a whole skiing resort, and that was a lot of fun. And also there, I used this kind of thing to, to tell people what to do, just out of some, because of some mood that I had or things like that, right? And yeah, and that really led, like, an inflection point was when I was 29, and it was October 2019, and I had realized that I feel quite empty. Like I have all these fun and success and all of that, and I felt deeply empty inside. Like I used to have a lot of one night stands, used to go out a lot, and like on the weekends and stuff like that. By that point, like drinking a lot as well. And it was a Sunday morning, and I was laying in my bed, and I was like, man, like, and that moment it really hit me. Like before, this had been like dawning, but that moment really hit me, and I'm like, wow, I feel empty. Like this is not doing anything for me. Like my body's alive, kind of Sunday morning. But my soul like was like in a coma, right? There was like
Right.
something profound missing in my life. And that was like an affliction point because I could have just stayed on. I could have just said like, okay, like let's, I don't care. Like I'm just gonna keep going, right? I'm just gonna go and work more, make another company or things like that, or look for that satisfaction or whatever more on the outside. But for me, that was a point where I was like, I can't do that anymore. And so I was like at a point where I reached out to a mentor and I had a chat. And after that talk, I was like, okay, I'm going to take the decision to leave those companies and to really find out what's missing. And yeah, 9 months later, I was out of Wealth Pilot, and then a little bit later, I sold the shares of the event company to my co-founder.
It's just, and first of all, thanks for sharing that because it really is an aspect of leaders who care also, what it's based upon to some degree. But some people would say, yeah, but is it worth it to go full force no matter what and make a ton of money and then be good type of thing, or then have integrity, or then, care, if you will, type of thing, because you've already made the money type of thing. And would you have made the money if you weren't so driven and powerful and not care or whatever, and then, type of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a valid question. And I think everybody can just answer that for themselves. What I've learned on my journey is that I've oftentimes looked on the outside. I've seen examples where this would work, right? I was like, okay, this guy, like, he built a unicorn. I'm just going to follow the blueprint and then I'm going to do the same. Well, it turns out the blueprint never works for everybody, right?
Right.
And it works for very, very like everybody has a unique journey in this life. Everybody has such a unique journey. And I now deeply believe that the real journey is of finding out who we really are, beyond all that we have learned, all the patterns that we have, like the pattern of the belief that I'm not good enough, or that I have to fight for the love, or that I have to prove my worth. Who am I beyond this? Who am I beyond these patterns of like anxious grasping? I need that woman to feel good about myself. I need that money to feel good about myself. I need that title to feel good about myself. Who am I beyond that? And oftentimes it's a very intense inflection point, obviously, because we've attached um, so much of our identity to that. And I fell after I left that company, I fell into a deep hole, for example, right? Like that was a real identity crisis. I didn't have anybody to guide me through that at first. Like the first 2 years was intense because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a mission. I didn't have any guidance, right? So the blueprint that would work for some people doesn't work for others because for me, what's fully alive, like being alive and being free means discovering who we are beyond all of these concepts that somebody says, okay, unicorn founders, wow. And then you listen to these podcasts and the people have the worst lives after the exit for 10 years. And I know some of them because I've worked with some of them.
Sure.
And they have the worst life after the exit because there's so much identity attached. And if you don't have like a framework for that, or yes, just some guidance, because every, like, not even framework but guidance that is very individualized, then it's sometimes hard. It was very hard for me to figure out what's really true, what's my truth.
Yeah, and we get defined and we self-define maybe too easily, on who we are. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of them, so actors, but also athletes, and the really good ones define themselves beyond being a good football player or a good hockey player, or beyond being the actor or whatnot. It's hard because you're in it. I mean, at that level, especially pro, you're top of the level. Then you got to act, not act. You've got to engage to be that level all the time.
Yeah.
But they find that, and this is kind of where leaders who care come from too. They found that they actually end up performing even better when they aren't totally defined as that one thing, but they're defined as a whole person. And it's kind of like I was just sharing with somebody. I remember, my youngest son, when he was about 11, and had a hockey coach, and the coach said, "Do you want to win or do you want to have fun?" He was yelling at them. And I talked to him afterwards. I said, "Really, that's the option you're giving them, to either win or have fun?" And by the way, they might have a better chance of winning if they're having fun also.
Yeah.
And that's the same in business. You'll probably perform better if you aren't burnt out and if you are, engaged with other people, et cetera, different things. So, I'm really appreciative of you sharing that because I think it's important and physical, mental health, everything, again, it's part of what we talk about leaders who care about the financial, the physical, and mental well-being of the people around them and the people that are working with them, and to be better together also. So with that said, our firm was founded on that premise that leaders who do care about those things actually do better in business as well,
Mm.
and their family and all that when they go home. Can you describe then how you decided then to what I can maybe get into the people side, the trainings, the coaching for entrepreneurs, the motivational speaking? How did that evolve?
How did that, well, yeah, and that was a point where I was really and what you shared is really something I just want to touch upon and then lead into that. Is really important for me. I've always had that inner general, I call him like the German general, right? That can really like drive things, push, but it's so hard on myself and on other people. Like that's really comes out really impulsive, right? So back in the days, I would really I was always around people, but it was really hard to set my boundaries and to tell people, like the truth and to speak the truth to women. I would rather, be unfaithful than speak about the truth and the real things that are happening in the relationship. So in a way, that kind of like general was so hard on myself and on others, and would just like pull it all together. What I've realized over the years now is that this kind of general, he's like a protector. He was a protector for a lot of times that I didn't feel loved or seen or heard, you know. And once I connected through to that softer part, so much unfolded for me, like so much more aliveness, so much more beauty, so much more connection with other people, with the intimacy with women that I now have is incredible. The connection I can build with men, with fellow brothers is so good, so great because there's not this intense protector there anymore. And at first, it felt super vulnerable. And I
Right.
was like, okay, am I going to lose my edge? Wow, 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 what is this?
Right.
But after a while, I realized that it's just like it's sharpening my sword more, and I'm just so much more alive, and I'm just so much more myself, and I'm just so much more happy, you know. And to come back to
That's crazy, isn't it? And
yeah,
it's actually easier and relaxing.
so good. It's so relaxing. And then there's not the, like what a lot of I think men especially are missing, but more and more women nowadays as well,
Right.
is really the enjoyment. What you say, the fun, the play, because we're constantly bombarded with like, ah, this person is better, this is so good. So we're always comparing ourselves. Like it's always about the performance nowadays. There's so much information out there how to get better at everything, right? What for? That people then, when they're in their 40s, wake up and they're like, what the fuck have I done with the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life?
Right. It's
Right?
interesting also what you say. There's a thing called, well, obviously everybody has value, literally. Every single person in the world has some value and enough. You also have enough. And because you didn't become the pro this or the famous singer or the best whatever, what you are is enough and it's valuable. And you're not a loser. I compare that like, to sports a lot. I mean, when two teams play for the championship, one team wins the game. The other team isn't a loser. They lost that game. It's a little bit of a mindset where you're not losers. And I remember this gal from Nigeria, a young gal, she took up chess. And there's a movie about her I still haven't seen. She took up chess and long story short, she got better at it and better. And then she was in regionals in Nigeria, got better and better and whatnot. And then international, she got better and better in that. And people asked her, what does it feel like when you lose a game? She said, I don't lose games. Well, you're not winning all yours. She said, well, I win and I learn. She didn't take on being defined as a winner or loser in that sense. And I think a lot of people, their mental health gets hurt by always have to, well, this isn't enough. I got to save the world. It's not enough what I'm doing. Or that type of mentality, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that mentality. I had that a few years ago as well, and um it's brought a lot of pressure. It's brought a lot of pressure on me, and ultimately then I was never fulfilled and I was never happy because, sometimes I reached the goals, sometimes I didn't. But as soon as I attach my happiness, my joy, whatever I want to an outcome, I'm always going to be disappointed. I'm always going to be resentful. I'm always going to be angry. And so that's the kind of deal, right? To disattach ourselves from the outcomes, choose, right? And I also don't think that like choose and then let go. That's what I mean. And I don't think that like we have tests or we have learnings to do here. Like this is again, this would come from a perspective of there's somebody watching us and he's evaluating if you're a good boy or a bad boy or a good girl or a bad girl. But that's not true
That's Santa
for
Claus,
me.
isn't it?
In my whoever you want, like I don't know, some people think that their God is watching them and that they're going to burn in hell if they're not good people, right? And that's installed so deeply in our system, like what you said, in the nervous system. Even if we don't even believe in God, it's still from our cultural heritage, from how we grew up, from what we learned when we were young, that it's not in our consciousness maybe, but it's deep down in the subconsciousness in the nervous system, wired in. And so I don't think that there's tests or any learning. It's just experiences. And we get to choose in every moment, who do I really want to be? And that's a very profound question, right?
Yeah.
That's like, that might be surface level, but then when we let ourselves like dive a little bit deeper, hey, do I want to be the hustling, the grinding entrepreneur that doesn't have time for their family? Who would I rather be? I would be like, I don't know, then
Yeah,
you
and you're
can
not,
start
and you're
asking
not,
yourself questions.
and you didn't lose, and you're not a loser by not achieving this or going to that or this, that, that type of thing. You're familiar with FOMO, right? The fear of missing out.
Of
Um,
course.
do you know what JOMO is?
Yeah, I think you
Oh, did
said
I
that
get,
last
yeah.
time we
Yeah,
spoke.
it's the joy of missing out. And
Yeah.
it takes away the anxiety of, oh my God, I didn't get that. I didn't achieve that. I didn't go to that. I didn't whatever. It's like, hey, that's cool. I didn't go. I'm fine. It's great. I'm fine. So I want to ask you though, just because of time, and we say in LA that we got to leave the audience wanting more anyway, so we can do a sequel, because that's LA. So, but AI impacts everything we're talking about also. Again, it's the fast and furious, everything coming, coming, coming. And for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, it's really hard. They're not all tech people, entrepreneurs and founders. They might be a scientist that invented something or whatever. And it's hard to keep up between the funding and the revenues and everything going on. With that, I'd like if you could share a little bit about the human element that you've put in some of the topics you've talked about, or when you're speaking and whatnot, related to leadership, related to learning from failure, mental health. You've had some really great topics that you've spoken about. Can you share about that and what do you see ahead for you now? As we're as
How does it tie into the AI? Is that all in one question or is there two questions?
Well, it's kind of, I guess, part of it in the sense of so much is happening right now
Uh-huh.
and
Ah, yeah.
whatnot, and your
Hmm.
entrepreneurship background combined with where you are now, um, and specifically some of the topics you've talked about, to help people, in my opinion, it seems recognize that human element still.
Mm, beautiful. No, it's so important. And I think the human element is more important than ever in the age of AI.
Right.
And the topics that I really talk about and that I also use in the coachings that I do with entrepreneurs, post-exit founders, and yeah, just men who are ready for the shift is really about emotional mastery, which is like a skill that um, nobody gets taught pretty much, right? And but that is so valuable now in the time of AI
Hmm.
and nervous system mastery, how to align life with your values. And I think all of these are super important in the time of AI because what's happening, what I'm seeing is that, like you said, like we have like the FOMO is real. Like I see that every day in the conversations that I follow in my networks, in my communities on LinkedIn, all of that, right? Like people are like, yeah, this, like then one says ChatGPT 5 is the best thing that's happened, and the other one's like, that's a scam, and like everything in between, right? So there's so many opinions. And if we jump on that cycle, we spin faster and faster and faster. That's why we're seeing rise of burnout, rise of depression, all of
Right.
that, because people are so disconnected from the body, right? They're always here, always in the mind, disconnected from the body. And so my take on that is really it's important to be informed about what AI is happening in the world, right? What's happening. And I'm also using AI on a daily basis. And what's so important is to just stay centered, to be in your center. The more we know who we are, the more we have like a grounded, a relaxed, a calm nervous system,
Right.
the more it doesn't matter what's going on outside. Like this thing is happening, that thing is happening. Yeah, okay, the next news, this news, it doesn't touch me, right? And I feel deeply, for a lot of the wars, for a lot of the things that are happening in the world.
Sure.
I feel deeply, and it doesn't impact the way that I operate, let's say. I do feel deeply. Sometimes I feel a lot of sadness, sometimes I feel a lot of grief because of the wars that are happening, which is horrible,
Yeah.
right? And at the same time, just it's so important to stay in our lanes and to not get like constantly kicked left and right and then reacting. That's what I see a lot of entrepreneurs and founders being. They're reacting. Okay, this doesn't work. Then I go there. Then there's a new thing coming up. I have to go this there. No, we want to stay centered and we want to stay in our lane. And the more we know who we are, the more we have a calm and relaxed nervous system, the more we live by our values and not only by the egoic needs that we have. That's when we flourish and that's when we can be happy and that's when we can be relaxed at the dinner table, enjoy the holidays, and just have fun and play in our lives, which is what life is mostly about for me.
That's what it should be about. And that's what people are craving. I actually believe that's what people are craving is not to be in that swirl, not to be in that, that stress. I mean, stress is a killer, basically.
Yeah.
For in a lot of ways. Well, last question on this, and we probably do have to do a sequel, is a client told me in 2021, he said, the year 2020, the pandemic, was the year that flew by slowly, he said. And I
Uh,
thought it was a brilliant comment. And it kind of relates even now where a lot of people feel like COVID was yesterday and years ago, all at the same time in a weird way. And now we're already at the end of 2025, goes super fast. With that said, everything you've been through too, what are you most grateful for and what are you most hopeful for?
I'm most grateful for all that I get to experience pretty much. I'm very grateful for my hometown. I'm grateful for nature. I'm grateful for the food that I have on the table every day. I'm grateful for the beautiful connection I have with my family. I'm grateful for the community. I'm grateful for the clients that I get to work with. I'm grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for the listeners that are listening. I'm really
You're pretty
I'm very,
grateful.
very I'm very grateful. I'm just very grateful. And what I'm hopeful for is that we are in an age where, and I see it that way, like from a systems perspective, before a system transforms into a new um, into a new mode of operation, like for example, water, right? When it gets heated up, before it starts boiling and actually it transforms into steam, it needs a lot of energy, right? It needs a lot more energy than the slow increase before. But it's a transformation of system, right? From water to steam, and needs a lot of energy. And then if we don't apply like there's a lot of pressure coming to the system, and the old system is shaking, 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 and that's what I'm seeing right now. It's like the old system is shaking,
Right.
and this creates on the so much. That's why it's so much tension. So what I'm seeing is a new mode of operation where we are realizing that we need more heart-led body-mind connection, where we need to, include others, co-create, where we develop a broader view. It's not us against them. No, oh, wow, there's actually we can solve this together, worldwide kind of thinking, globalism, but not globalism in the newspaper, but globalism inside of us, where I relate to another person as somebody who could be my next best friend, even though they look completely different. And I see this happening. So there's one side that's really like kind of like letting us be the water, where it's like, this old forces. And then there's the new kind of thinking where it's like, well, we could be steam, right? And we could like fly and be free and liberated. And that's what I'm seeing is happening. So I'm very hopeful that more and more leaders, to bring that back to the podcast theme, are realizing that the more we do the inner work and the more we can be a stand for love and for co-creation, for collaboration, for groundedness, for good values, the more we can be a stand on our own because we've done the work and we're not reacting, but we are acting from full conscious decision, the more we can together transform this world into the beautiful, the beautiful steam.
No, it's beautiful, and yeah, thanks for sharing that. It reminds me again of a sports analogy where you have a league of teams, and each team is trying to do their best to compete and to win the championship. But they also know that if the league is not successful and valuable, the championship is worthless at the same time. And so we can all be better by being together doing things and competing and whatnot, but there's no losers. Like when you have a trade between two teams in a league, there should not be a loser in the trade. They should both get something that adds value to them in a trade, things of that nature that makes the league better. Um, and that's kind of the way we should do. So, well, I'm grateful that I have a new friend, which is really cool,
Yeah.
and for I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares, and I thank you for that and for sharing what you did on the series here. And I'm actually hopeful for the same thing because you're gonna keep doing great things and spread the joy, man.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. Thank you so much, Mark. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my privilege. Thanks.